Jay here, Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm in the studio. We are live. So get involved in the chat and the comments. Going to be talking about all the latest Manchester United news. Obviously, the big game this week is the quarter-final second leg of the Europa League against Lyon. That is on Thursday, so there's a little bit of a look towards that as well, because let's be honest, that's the entire season. It might even be the entire summer as well in terms of transfer budget and all the rest of it if we qualify for the Champions League. So we'll be getting into a little bit of that. Also looking at a couple of transfer rumours, a couple of injury updates, and what went on Sky Sports last night with Thierry Henry laying into Leny Yoro. What I'll get into that, because that annoyed me a little bit. I don't really go on social media as much anymore, certainly not Twitter or X, as it's called. But I saw this doing the rounds and I was a little bit annoyed, and I saw quite a lot of people commenting on it and responding to it. So we'll get into all that. Loads of people in the chat already. Glenn F, Santa Notch, BMW Racing 1974, Jacoya Trot, Alex, all good people saying good morning. Make sure you're smashing a like. Hit that like button, please, people. Let's get 100 likes on the board. Let's get them in nice and early. Why not? And if you're not doing so already, please subscribe to the channel. We want to get to 800,000 subscribers. We're not that far off it, man. It'd be good to get to 800,000. Thank you for everyone who's supported us over the last almost 5 years since we took over as Stretford Paddock. Who'd have thunk it? Right, let's talk about this Leny Yoro, Thierry Henry clip then. Because, look, I get, right, that Manchester United, it's open season for criticising Manchester United, right? We're awful. This is the worst Manchester United side arguably ever, or certainly in the Premier League era. We're conceding goals all the time. We're making silly mistakes. We're not scoring enough. We're getting beat almost every week. So I understand why pundits will be having a dig, will be criticising us, will be just doing fair analysis, to be honest with you. I don't think there's anything wrong with looking at this current Manchester United team, looking at the performances and ripping it apart and going, this isn't good enough. These players aren't performing at levels remotely good enough for Manchester United Football Club. I don't expect pundits to go on Sky Sports or to go on Monday Night Football and go, hey, United were great at the weekend, weren't they, getting beat 4-1 at Newcastle? They played really well. What a fantastic performance by all involved. I don't expect that at all, and nor would I want it. I want pundits to be honest. I want them to be genuine. I want them to analyse what they've seen. I get it. What I did find a little bit unfair, though, was, first of all, Thierry Henry's criticism of Leny Yoro. Now, what he was doing there, he was pointing out for one of the goals that Newcastle scored, I forget which one, forgive me, he was saying that Leny Yoro, he's almost like he's trying to play offside. The goal goes in, it's obviously not offside, but he sees Leny Yoro looking to the side. You can see Thierry Henry mimicking what Leny Yoro's doing. He says he looks for the offside. There is no offside. I don't know why he's looking there, he says. He says, I've never seen anything like that before. Now, for starters, that's nonsense, right? We have all seen players look to the linesman, even when it doesn't really feel like there's an offside. Everyone does it. Everyone does it. When there's even remote hint, or even if sometimes when there isn't, it's almost an instinct. It's like a reflex thing, the linesman. Is the linesman going to flag it? Have I missed something? Was there an offside? Was there even an infringement? Especially as well in VAR era, where you might have missed something or something's happened and you turn, actually, the linesman's had someone in his ear, or he's flagged for something, because he's not sure, but he knows VAR will check it for him. So I get it. We've seen it as well over the years. I'm a fan, right? I've never played professional football in my life. As a fan, I have seen countless players look to linesmen when there is no hint of offside. It happens all the time. Do you remember some of the iconic ones? Do you remember Fabian Barthez when he was a goalkeeper? Di Canio scored against him with his hand up looking to the linesman. When everyone knew it wasn't offside, it was a clear West Ham goal. It happens all the time. So for Thierry Henry to say, I've never seen that before, I thought was disingenuous, right? So that's one thing. I thought it was a little bit harsh. The way he was basically taking the mick out of the kid, I thought was OTT. Then you've got Sky Sports, the way they sort of amplified it on social media. So they did like a tweet, a post on X with laughing emojis, taking a mick out of Leny Yoro a little bit. Jamie Carragher did something similar, well, you might argue it's silly, quoting the original Sky Sports post with his own laughing emojis. And then what happens is, about an hour later, after everyone's kicked off, everyone's pointing out, this is a bit harsh, this is unnecessary, any need for this? The Sky Sports deleted their tweet, and Jamie Carragher deleted his. Now look, you might criticise Leny Yoro's performance. You might say he should have done better for some of the goals against Newcastle. I understand that. But the way he went about it, sort of just mocking him, really, felt a little bit OTT. And let's not forget as well, right? This is a teenager. I know he's cost a chunk of money. I know he's not a teenager that's like 15, that's never kicked a ball before, but he's still a teenager in his debut season in the Premier League, finding his feet, and he's also surrounded by players who've played a lot more football than him and who played a lot worse on Sunday against Newcastle. I don't remotely think Leny Yoro was the worst player on that pitch. If you want to start digging out players, why don't you look at the players that had a bit of a stinker? We saw players falling over and losing the ball that led to goals. We saw players passing to the Newcastle players to help them score a goal. We saw players just getting walked past by wingers and not being able to do anything or willing to do anything about it. So it felt a little bit odd to pick on Leny Yoro and also to mock him in that way. It didn't feel like analysis. It felt like almost a joke. And even Carragher himself said that'll be a meme later. Like they were aiming for that. Like that was the plan. Let's have a go at Leny Yoro and let's make this into a little bit of a funny meme kind of thing. And I expect a little bit better from pundits. I expect when I'm watching Sky Sports, them to be a little bit more than just let's make a joke, let's do a silly meme, let's make it about a laugh and a giggle at this young lad's expense. Now, you might think, I'm going to get into comments in a minute, I'm being too sensitive, United are rubbish, we should take our medicine. I'll take my medicine. I'll criticise players. I do it almost every week when we're watching this current Manchester United side. There is nothing wrong with that. Thierry Henry is a footballer who is up there with any Premier League footballer in terms of achievements and his reputation and all the rest of it. He's viewed as one of the all-time Premier League players. Many people think he's the greatest player to ever play in the Premier League, but that's nonsense because Cristiano Ronaldo exists. But he's entitled to his opinion and to give his analysis. That's what he's there for, and his words carry a lot of weight. I just felt it was a little bit unfair. I felt it crossed the line from being analysis to just being a bit of a joke. And I think they knew that. And I also thought on the socials, the way they handled it was a little bit of a joke. And you know what my default setting will always be when it comes to young Manchester United players? It's to defend them. To defend them when I think someone's crossing a line. And I feel like that way with Leny Yoro. I think Leny Yoro has done well since he's come in. He's not been perfect. Let's not kid ourselves. Me and Joe were chatting earlier. The Southampton game in particular had a bit of a nightmare. And there's certain times in certain games when you think, okay, he could have done a little bit better. But on the whole, I think he's been a good signing. You can see there's a player there. You look at some of the tackles he's put in. You look at some of the performances he's put in. He's definitely a very good player. And you can understand why Real Madrid wanted him. And why Manchester United fans like myself were chuffed we got him. It's not easy as well. He came in, he got injured in pre-season. He's come back into a team when the manager that's brought him in, or the manager who was in charge when he arrived, has been sacked. So he's come back into another manager with a new system that he's had to sort of adapt to. And I think he's done well. So it just felt a bit weird. And I was looking as well, and I think Thierry Henry and Leny Yoro's paths crossed, when Henry was in charge of France under-21s. I don't know if there's history there. I don't know whether there is a little bit of need or whether he just doesn't like the kid or whatever. But it just felt a bit odd to me and a bit unnecessary. There's lots and lots of things to criticise Manchester United for. There's lots of players to criticise at Manchester United at the minute. But I think a player looking towards a linesman after he's conceded a goal and making a big deal out of it, and then the social media teams at Sky Sports mocking him for it, felt a bit much. Let me know what you think. Let me know. Get involved in the chat and the comments. Do you agree? Benjamin Gerard says you expect better from a guy who's spat in a child's face, obviously a reference to Jamie Carragher. I mean, anything to get them, says good bloke outdoors, anything for them to get the clips for clicks. I think there's an element of that. I think that's right. I think there probably is a bit of that, like let's get some clicks, let's get this generated on social media. But then even they must have acknowledged they made a bit of a balls up because they deleted it. They deleted what they did on the social media post. They're still running the footage. I watched Sky Sports this morning. They were showing it. They were showing the analysis, but they've deleted some of the social media posts. And I do worry a little bit as well because I think some of these young players, regardless of whether they're from France, England, wherever, do go on social media, do see things like that, and it can get in their head. I always think if you're playing for Manchester United, you've got to have a bit of a thick skin. You've got to be able to take criticism. You're playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. You're on a big amount of money in terms of your wages. There's an expectation there. If you play badly or if your team underperforms, you're going to get criticism. You cannot play for Manchester United and be unable to handle criticism. I'm not saying that. I just felt that crossed the line, and I feel like sticking up for Leny Yoro. Get involved in the chat and the comments. Harry Potter says, protect Leny at all costs. They're going to come for him. Nicolangelo Dulce says, in 3 years' time, we'll have the best defence in the league with Yoro and Heaven at the centre of it. Love that. Santa Notch says, Jamie laughing along with it on Twitter, then deleting his tweet because he knows he's being a PRICK. Harry Potter says, speaking of clicks, hit that like button, people. Great shout. Deftwork says, lol, analysis, in quotes. Glenn F says, they're doing it now because they know that the game on Thursday is the big one. This is it. This is the big one. And they want to unsettle us, especially a 19-year-old FFS. Major Mumwet says he was hoping for a foul on Maz, not an offside. Well, there you go. Fair enough. I don't know what he was looking for. But if he was looking for a foul, there's nothing wrong with that, right? We've all done it. How many times have you watched the watch-along with us lot where we haven't maybe celebrated a United goal the way we should have done because we think, hang on a minute, I think there might be an offside, especially in the VAR era. We're all guilty of it. So just nonsensical to claim that a player won't instinctively look to the linesman even when there isn't an offside, an obvious offside, or an obvious infringement. How many times have we seen goals chalked off for something you didn't even know? You didn't spot at the time and then they found something. When was it? Was it McTominay at Fulham last season? There was one at Fulham, I can't remember who scored it. I think it was McTominay. Was it McTominay, Joe? Yeah. Do you remember when they looked at it for like 3 minutes? Yeah. And they were like, actually, subjective offside, thank you. And it was like, they looked at one thing, that was all right. Then they looked at another and they found that Maguire was offside and then there was this debate, was he even infringing? That went on for ages, like they were trying to find something. And when we watched that goal, at first you thought there isn't an issue with it. So it happens constantly. I don't care how long you've been watching football. You will have seen players looking to the linesman when there's no offside or when there isn't an infringement. They do it. They do it at all levels, including the Premier League level. They do it at international level. They do it at grassroots level. It's a thing that happens. It's like, was there anything there? Is the linesman going to get me out of trouble? And they alluded to that on Monday Night Football, but then they mocked him. I thought it was a bit too much. Mick Hollahan says, Sky punditry standards has died a while ago. David Situla says, punditry has gone downhill since a long time. Abinam Verma says they resort to any nonsense like this. Sorry, there was a bit of an earlier point. He says, I'm not expecting anything from these pundits, Jay. I think these are mediocre analysis, good players, except Carragher, but I feel they're jealous of YouTubers' views. So they resort to nonsense like this. Twistat says they're weirdos, anything to take digs at United and get some clicks. These clowns at the Mail moaning about the Europa League winners going straight into the Champions League. I saw that. Was it Ian Ladyman and Chris Sutton saying that it's, you know, an outrage that the Europa League winners go into the Champions League? Right. That's been going on for years. I remember being stood in Stockholm when United lifted the trophy and we were buzzing, not just because we lifted the Europa League, we're buzzing because we got into the Champions League. That was, what, 8 years ago? So why is this suddenly becoming an issue now? I don't get it. I don't get why people are moaning about it. I mean, Ian Ladyman here, I think this is by Joseph Palmer, but he's quoting the podcast, the thing that Ian Ladyman was on. He says, if Tottenham or Manchester United scraping the Champions League through victory in the Europa League, it's fundamentally wrong and unfair. Right, look, United and Tottenham are terrible, right? Two of the worst United and Tottenham teams you've seen. Didn't Spurs finish about mid-table when they got to the Champions League final once? Or am I imagining that? I might be wrong. But like, if they'd have won the Champions League that season, they'd have been in the Champions League next year, despite finishing out of plays. I might be wrong on that. Haven't Chelsea done it when they finished outside the top four and then won the Champions League? It happens, right? Now, I get United are far worse than just outside the top four. We're in the bottom half. But Jose did a similar thing, not as badly, but in January, Jose basically went, right, forget the league. We ain't getting into the Champions League via our league position. We're just going to focus on the Europa League. We won the League Cup in February, and then we just concentrated on the Europa League. And I remember watching United week in, week out, like drawing at home to Swansea and teams like that. And Jose just rotate the team like it was a dead rubber, like it didn't matter. And you're like, hang on a minute. We're halfway through the season, and you're playing players that never get a start. What is going on? But he knew the only way United were going to get into the Champions League was via the Europa. So he focused on that. And to be fair to him, he got it right. We won the Europa League and we got into the Champions League. Admittedly, we were a bit lucky in some respects with the Celta Vigo. Was it Guindetti who nearly scored in the last minute? But we got there, right? But he did. He forgot about the league and he went for it. Now, United finished sixth, so you can argue we weren't as bad as we are now. I get all that. But the fact was he focused on Europa League because he knew it was a Champions League qualification. That was going to work for him. So teams that can do that, it's a thing. So it's a bit daft to start saying, well, if Spurs or United get through, they shouldn't be allowed to go into the Champions League. You can't change the rules halfway through a competition. Well, usually you can't. You can't move the goalposts. United are going to get into the Champions League if we win the Europa League, as will Spurs if they do instead. That's just the way it is. Now, you might want to have that conversation next season. You might want to say, moving forward, that shouldn't become a thing. But I think it does give a little bit more value to the Europa League. It does. And let's not forget they've changed the Europa League as well this season. You haven't got some of the bigger teams coming into it. Remember, was it last season, the 2 seasons ago? Well, we basically had United versus Barcelona in the Europa League, which was a Champions League final not that long ago, no, it was a little while ago, but not that long ago, two of the biggest clubs in the world facing each other in the Europa League, because obviously Barcelona, I think, dropped down, didn't they? But you don't have that drop-down system now. It's simply, if you qualify for the Europa League, they're the only teams that are in it, and that's how it sort of transpires, it moves forward. So I think having that extra carrot for those teams of saying, look, this competition has a little bit more value because it's going to get you into the Champions League, encourages teams to play strong teams in that competition, encourages teams to care, encourages all the fans you will see on Thursday night. And I can guarantee this, because I've had loads of people messaging me for tickets, I expect Old Trafford on Thursday night to be sold out. Now, if that competition didn't get us into the Champions League, I don't know if it would be. I don't know if Henry, I know it's still a trophy, but I don't know if there'd be the same sort of enthusiasm for the game against Lyon this Thursday as there is if it didn't help us get Champions League qualification, or if it wasn't the only route to Champions League qualification. I still think there'd be a decent crowd. There always is at Old Trafford. Would it be sold out like I think it will be? Would there be this atmosphere and this excitement and this anxiety that we've all got around that fixture? I'm not so sure. Let me know what you think. Jiggers O'Toole, it was called the European Cup. Yeah, listen, I think United in 98-99 were the first team to go into the Champions League who weren't the champions or the holders of the trophy. Competitions change, they evolve, they move forward. They're not the same as they were. Back in the day, the only way you got into the European Cup was by winning the league or winning the European Cup the previous season. So the most teams you could have from one country in the European Cup was 2. How many we going to have next season? We could have 6 or something, couldn't we? If Villa win, how many is it, Joe? Sorry, 7. If Villa win the Champions League and finish outside the top 5, if United win the Europa League, and then if it's 5 places for the, maths is not my strong point. If it's 5 places for the coefficient, then you could have 7 English teams in the Champions League, which would have seemed insane when I was a kid, because you had 1 usually. So yeah, it does change, but you're not going to change it now. Wahib Brook says, we will win the Europa League. Adam Hicks says, Ahmad back in training. I'm going to get to that in a minute. First of all, though, United have been linked with a player. I think this is Patrick Berger, who's a friend of the channel. He's been on before, knows his stuff when it comes to Germany. He says, Manchester United... Oh, no. We're in the monitoring the situation stage of transfer rumours. We are monitoring the situation of Bayer Leverkusen striker Patrick Schick. United are in the market for a number 9 and prefer a younger profile, but Schick is also considered interesting. There you go. He's considered interesting. That seems like a bit of a backhanded comment. It's like an insult, that, doesn't it? You know, it's just, oh yeah, I watched your documentary. Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, it was yeah, good. Yeah, he's got quite a lot of goals this season. I think he's 17 goals in 26 games. He's absolutely flying. Leverkusen would demand 25 to 30 million euros for Schick, who's under contract until 2027. The Premier League is Schick's preferred destination, despite interest from Saudi clubs. A move to the Middle East is currently not an option. Would you have him? Would you have him for, let's just say, the top end, 30 million euros? He's 29, doesn't fit the profile, apparently, of what we're going for. He turns 30 in January. He's 29 till he's 30. He's having he's a bit up and down in the old Schickster with his goals and stuff. Last season, I'm just having a look at his stats. He's 7 in 20 in the I think this is in the Bundesliga. The season before, he had quite a lot of injuries, 3 in 14. The season before that, 24 in 27. And the season before that, 9 in 29. So he does score goals. Is he the player, is he the profile of player that Manchester United want? Let me know what you think. Get involved in the chat and the comments. We're in that point at the minute, aren't we, where me and Joe were chatting about this earlier, where I feel like any player that's remotely half decent that gets linked with United, you're like, get him. Get him. He's better than what we've got. He'll score more goals than Rasmus Højlund. He'll score more goals than Joshua Zirkzee. Get him. We have to be careful about who we buy because we haven't got much money. So we have to get the right players in. It's not just a case of get someone in who's better than what we've got or can get more goals than the strikers we've got. Because at the moment, the strikers we've got ain't scoring any goals. So that's not going to help us just getting in someone who's a bit better. We need to have someone who perhaps, I know people hate it, has a bit of sell-on value, who maybe can get better and better rather than have one good season and then maybe he tails off a little bit, or someone who wants big money for his wages. Let me know what you think. Adam Kenny says, we got to stretch the pennies. Freeze and perfect fits only. I hear that. I do hear that. Okay, no need to call him that. Someone calling him Patrick Shit. That's a bit harsh. Should we talk about Amad? I was going to say Diallo, but he's not anymore. He's just Amad, isn't he? He's back in training. He's back on the grass. I don't mean marijuana. He's been training on the pitches. This has been doing the rounds. I think there's a story. I think he posted something on his Instagram. Amad Diallo. He is just calling himself Amad, isn't it? Yeah. So I don't know why journalists don't get on board with this. Post significant update ahead of Lyon. He's not. I don't think he's going to be playing ahead of Lyon. I think we can just put that one to bed straight away. I think he's been training on the grass. So yes, he's had his full kit on, but he's not been. I don't think he's been doing any sort of contact training or anything like playing with alongside other players or where he could get tackled or whatever. So I don't think he'll be anywhere near the squad for the Lyon game. However, there's a nice picture of him. Oh, I've missed that man. I missed him so much. If we do get through and he could play a part in the semi-finals, that would be amazing. We need him. So fingers crossed he gets his recovery or he's recovered sooner rather than later. But the added caveat, we don't want to rush him, do we? We don't want him coming back because we often rush players back, don't we? We get them back and then they're injured again straight away. So take your time with Amad and hopefully we can get him back to play a significant part this season. Let's talk, just a quick one before we wrap up. Scott McTominay. He scored a couple more goals last night. Who was it they were playing? Were they playing Empoli? That was it, wasn't it? So he's got 2 goals, taking his tally to 8 for the season. So he is banging in the goals. And this sort of generates this whole debate, discussion, done it on social media. Everyone like, we shouldn't have sold Scott McTominay. I know there's lots of people that thought we shouldn't have sold him anyway. I understand it. I get it. He was a player that played quite well for Manchester United over the years, didn't he? Overall, if we're being brutally honest. His last game for us was the FA Cup final, and I'll keep saying it because I'm obsessed with that game. I thought he did a very good job on man-marking Rodri, a different sort of job, but he did it. Also very capable of getting goals. We saw that a lot last season. When he left, Scott McTominay, and when it was like, we're selling him because that's going to help fund Manuel Ugarte, I got it. I understood it. I wasn't against it. I wasn't like, that's ludicrous. It made sense. And to a certain degree, I know this is going to be an unpopular decision. It kind of still makes sense to me. I do feel like you can't just say, if you thought Scott McTominay shouldn't have been sold anyway before he went to Napoli, I get it, right? I understand that argument. But just because he's banging in goals at Napoli, now you're going, we shouldn't have sold him. Lukaku's doing well at Napoli. Should he be back at United? Chris Smalling went to Roma back when United were a lot better. He did really well. Ashley Young went to Inter. Alexis Sanchez went to Inter. Players often go to Italy and do really well. That doesn't mean necessarily they should have stayed at Manchester United. However, you may feel differently about Scott McTominay. Let me know what you think in this chat in the comments. Let's hit that like button. Harry Potter says, bring back McSauce. Adam Kenny says, we should have sold Scott years ago. We're always behind our current needs. Amir Fikri says, Ahmad, this is passion to play for the badge. I love this kid. Heaven Soul says, it was time for Scott to go, but we can be glad to see him fitting in and doing well. Why not? Let's end on a little positivity. We can be happy for the lad. Good stuff. We're going to be back later on. We've got Laurie Whitwell here for Inside United. So me, Joe and Laurie are going to be sitting down, going through all his latest articles. I think he's done something on Andre Onana, who's been a big talking point this week, hasn't he? So we'll be getting into all that, plus some other United news as well. Plus, I think we'll be chatting to Stephen Housen later on. So make sure, if you're not doing so already, you are subscribing to the channel. Hit that like button as well, please. I'm Jay. This has been The Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.